when I wrote the book, largely I was responding, or in large part I was responding to questions that had come to me, people saying, why am I feeling so distracted? Why is it that I'm trying to do one thing, getting pulled away? And so as I started writing, people kept saying, yes, please address distraction. Why am I so distracted? And I think what we find is that our technology is evolving towards distraction. So every new technology is more distracting than the one before. Maybe that's a bit hyperbolic, but you know what I'm saying, that our technologies are continually finding new ways to distract us. So just think about the beep. The beep didn't exist a few years ago. It was, 50 years ago, there were no beeps in the world, but then we started this new noise that is meant to call us from one thing to another thing. And our lives are full of beeps now. They're full of flashing lights. They're full of things that are always trying to take us away from what we're doing to something else. So think about devotions. You used to be able to sit down and focus on devotions. Now you sit down and your cell phone buzzes and your email bings, and there's just constantly things in our lives that are calling us away from what we're doing. So as Christians, again, we need to be very willing to find quiet spaces, to find areas in life where we remove those beeps. So think about having a basket in your home. When you get home in the evening, you put your cell phone in that basket, your wife puts her cell phone in the basket, the kids put their handheld gaming things in the basket, you put it in a cupboard and you don't touch it again until 9 o'clock or until the next morning. We've got to find ways of removing these distractions because they're always calling us away from real life. We're living in a space, but our heads are far, far away. We're sitting beside our wife, but interacting with the world online. We've got to be present in the here and now. Information overload is not something that's new to us. If you go back even as far as the telegraph, when it came on the scene, people were talking about information overload because suddenly information was coming from the outside world into their closed little world, their closed context. So it's not a new problem, but through the internet, suddenly there's so much information that we hardly know what to do with it. And where I'm concerned is that I think a lot of Christians are now thinking that information is inherently good. And really there's a bit of a hierarchy here. You have information, then you have knowledge, and then you have wisdom. And so our task as Christians is to find information that we can think about, turn into knowledge, things we really know in the heart, and then transform that into wisdom. Think about it biblically, become wise on the basis of that information. So if you're just accumulating information, you're not doing yourself any favors. You're probably harming yourself just by drowning in a sea of information. So take information, yes, but think about it, work on it, think of it biblically, pray about it, transform it into wisdom, and then just ask yourself, how am I going to live better? How am I going to live for God's glory on the basis of this information? If it can help you live for God's glory, then maybe you don't need that information in your life. Privacy is a growing issue, and there's kind of two sides to it. There's the privacy that we expect to have that companies may not be granting us. So your cell phone company knows where you are right now, and they know where you've been every moment for the last, well, as long as you've had that phone and that contract. So there's privacy in that way. There's also privacy in what I tell about myself to the world. And my main concern, at least right now, is what we're telling about ourselves. And the internet seems to bring out this strange combination of exhibitionism and voyeurism, where I love to tell everybody what I'm doing, and then I love everybody to see what I'm doing, and I want to see what other people are doing. So privacy, it seems to me, the main issue in privacy right now is how much am I willing to reveal about myself to the world. And I think Christians, as with everyone else, we're revealing way too much about ourselves. We're giving things away that should be private information. So just be very, very careful what you're saying about yourself, how you're saying it, what you're revealing of yourself. The world doesn't need to know a lot of this stuff. The internet allows us all to be anonymous. It's one of the great benefits, it's one of the great risks. So we like to be anonymous when we're doing our banking. We can go on, we can have privacy, we can do our banking online, nobody has to know. We also like to be anonymous when we're looking at pornography. Nobody has to know. We can do it secretly and do it quietly. So Christians have to be very, very guarded and think about it, reflect on it when you come to those moments where you don't want people to know what you're doing. Think about it, make it significant when you're hiding, when you're looking for anonymity online. And you may well find that when you're seeking that anonymity, when you're trying to hide, you're doing it against your conscience. You're doing it because you're doing something sinful. So this will be one of the big things growing in the years to come. More and more browsers now, just about every browser now, gives you the ability to completely erase any history of what you're doing. God knows what you're doing. God's got your history. God knows what you're doing moment by moment. And so don't live as if I have to guard against what my wife sees. Live as if God is watching what I'm doing. God knows my heart. God sees what I'm doing. Be very careful when it comes to being anonymous. It's very easy to use anonymity against God rather than for Him. I think everybody needs to read a book on technology because we live in a technological world. This is all around us. people are watching this interview right now online, they're using technology. So my parents don't think they use a lot of technology, but they both have a cell phone and they have a computer and they're very comfortable on an iPad, and they're surrounded by digital technologies. And this is changing the way we live, changing the way we relate to one another, the way we relate to God. So I think everybody really should grapple with some of these issues. So even if you're not the technological guru, even if you're not the smart, brilliant nephew everybody calls when their computer breaks, you still need to understand how media works in our lives, how technology operates in our lives, and then use it to the glory of God. There is a distinctly Christian way to think about technology. So as Christians, let's think that way. Let's understand how God wants us to use technology, how we can use technology for His glory to carry out the mandate He's given us. And then I think we can live virtuously in this world using these technologies instead of being used by them.